Live from Atlanta, Georgia, from the Fox 5 studios, this is Good Day Atlanta.
Well, we all know that some teenagers are hardwired to take risks and will often look for some responsibility. But our next guest says we've sheltered our kids so much that we may be keeping them from becoming happy and thriving adults. Here with us this morning is Dr. Michael Ungar, author of Too Safe for Their Own Good. Doctor, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Pleasure to have you here.
Nice to meet you.
You know, I'm reading through this book and I'm trying to apply it to my life and my parenting skills, and I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, we try to make things almost too easy for our kids.
That's exactly what I've been finding. I mean, we are talking about families who love their kids, like I'm sure you do, and have really safe families and really, you know, in communities where we got it all set up right. And in those cases, what I was seeing more and more in my clinical practice and through my research was that there are families who are just bubble wrapping kids, who are taking away risk and responsibility, the same kind of things which I think we had growing up a little bit more, right? Some of that responsibility for others, we had to work a little bit, and it's like we're cloistering our children, taking away all that stuff and then expecting them to still grow up and be contributing adults, what I call the 4 C's, these competent and caring contributors to our communities. Well, it doesn't make sense, does it?
Right, right. Now, what's the difference between, you know, risk and destructive behavior?
Oh, big difference. I mean, I'm talking about manageable amounts of exposure to adventure and definitely responsibility, and that can come in all kinds of forms, right? I mean, I often ask parents to think back. I mean, we've got now where our schoolyards, you can't play tag, you can't climb a tree, you can't even go on
play dodgeball.
You can't do any. You can't Red Rover. You can't go on sleepovers. The schools are holding us back and that type of thing. Now, if you and I think back, those were key experiences that we had, that we learned stuff from, good common sense, ways to navigate our communities, how to keep ourselves safe from strangers, how to talk to adults. Now, my point is, and what I'm talking about in Too Safe is really, if we take away all the really dangerous stuff, which we should, and we put the helmets on and we get the kids all safely bubbled and everything else, I mean, we still got to think back as parents, what were the building blocks that we learned? What did we learn when we took some manageable amounts of risk and responsibility when we were growing up? And how can we find those same building blocks for our kids to have the right kind of development?
Right, because in a way, we're kind of stifling their creativity and stifling kind of the building blocks that help shape the person, is what you're telling us.
Absolutely, and I see this when I work with families from, you know, again, I'm emphasizing here, these are loving parents who really want the best for their kids.
Right.
And yet sometimes I have to ask the parents, well, you know, when you were 14 or 13 or 12, what were you doing? And they kind of, oh my God, there but by the grace of God went I. And I say, okay, we don't want that much danger maybe, but you learned something, I'll say to the parents. And they'll say, yeah, I learned something, and I learned some good common sense. And I say, well, what is your kid trying to learn now? And you know, because we are fearful, right? Dangerous, delinquent, deviant, and disordered kids, we don't want those. We want the competent, the caring, the contributing members of our communities. And I find that that takes some development. That means putting our kids, having some chances to take some manageable amounts of risk and responsibility. And that's basically the stories I gathered from families. I just wrapped up into a book and said, here's some good wisdom from people who I know.
Interesting stuff, too. You also talk about another condition in there called affluenza, which I know some kids suffering from. But, you know, these are kids, you know, from families that have done well, and just trying to make things easy for their kids, but at the same time, maybe sheltering them from some valuable life lessons.
I think the question really is, and a lot of parents who have themselves come out of some poverty, or, you know, we have to really struggle, we have to work a lot of jobs, and I include myself a little bit in that. I mean, the danger, and I feel it with my own kids too, I have a couple of teenagers, and I feel that too, that I might not want them to have to go through those same experiences, but at the same time, if I want a kid who understands the value of hard work and the consequences to not working hard, that if I just buy him the car and give it to him at 16, if I just buy him everything, he doesn't have to pay the insurance, then am I really setting him up to be the kind of adult I want at 26? Am I really building in him all the key lessons? So let's face it, out of love, we can overdo it with our kids, and that's really, I think it's about finding a balance, isn't it?
Yeah, striking that right balance, which is always kind of tough for us parents.
I always say, trust yourself as parents. Trust what feels right. but then think back to your own childhood and what really gave you that bounce in life.
Yes, indeed. Dr. Ungar, pleasure. Thanks so much for stopping by. Dr. Michael Ungar's Too Safe for Their Own Good offers a shift in the paradigm of parenting, and it's on sale right now. Interesting read, Cheryl. All parents should take a good hard look at it. But let's get over to you and check our weather for today.